I used to be a swimmer. But now I'm so afraid of water that I can't even get into a toddler pool. Let me tell you the story of how it happened. A few winters ago, my friends called me up after 10 p.m. The next day was my day off, so I answered the call. Is a womanizer and has had problems with women several times. He is self-centered and has few friends. I went to his room, expecting to be pushed around again. As soon as I arrived at the room, he threw me some clothes. He said he was going fishing at night. I was wearing light clothes, so I was sure I would feel cold if I went there as it was. I told him I only needed my coat, but he said it was dirty. So I had to borrow a set of clothes. I thought that was very thoughtful for the self-centered's. And I have very similar body shapes, so the clothes I borrowed fit perfectly. When I put on his clothes and even put on a hat, I felt strange because I looked exactly like in the mirror. The destination was a swamp about 30 minutes away by car. Not being an expert fisherman, I had no knowledge of where or what to fish for. So I did as I was told, baiting the hook and dropping a line. I watched the float bobbing on the surface of the water in the moonlight. I fished only when I was invited. It was dark around me, and I had no time for conversation. This must have been very bored to invite me to go fishing at this time of night. I suddenly remembered and asked him, "How are things with your girlfriend?" If the next day was a vacation, I was usually with my girlfriend. I had heard that his girlfriend liked to hang out with him. Thence looked at me with a serious face and said, "Us about that." Said, "Do you believe in ghosts?" I said. I answered, "No, I don't believe in ghosts." Laughed and said, "That's why I raid you." She killed herself. He said they went to the beach together, had a fight there, and she got hysterical, so I got mad too, and left her there and came home alone. Then the police called me as soon as I got home. They said she jumped into the sea, leaving a suicide note with my contact information. A fisherman nearby saw it and called me right away. He said the body had been up there for a week. It looks like she was in the water for about 10 days. Then it's just that, if I fill the bath with hot water, I can see her face in the bath. If you look at the river, I see her looking at me. Now I see her in my coffee and miso soup. Apparently, she comes out to where the water is pooling. That made me laugh out loud. Apparently, this self-centered man has as much sense of guilt as anyone. Because I think that if ghosts really exist, they appear right after death. When I said this, laughed and said, "Then you're not afraid, are you?" As a matter of fact, he's still there. Just pointed to the water's edge, a short distance away from us. Of course I said I wasn't afraid, and he said, "Well, I'm not afraid here." Of course I said I wasn't scared and stood there. I stood at that spot. Got up and stood behind me to hide. I said, "What, you're scared?" It was funny to see her scared in a way I wouldn't have thought possible under normal circumstances. She had bad eyesight. She can't see very well without contact lenses. Murmured in my ear. With a thud, pushed me back and I fell into the swamp. I fell into the swamp, but it was less than 30 centimeters deep. I was on my ass, but the water was only up to my shins. I said, "You've got to be kidding me." I got up and tried to climb back onto the shore, but something got caught in my leg. I tried to shake it off, thinking it was algae or trash, but I couldn't get my legs up. Said, "Sorry," with a drawn-out smile plastered on his face. The thing tangled in my leg crawled up my shin. When I looked, I saw a hand swollen with boogers, which looked oddly clear in the moonlight. When you are really scared, you don't scream. The hand reached out and crawled up my thigh, and when it eventually reached my waist, a head peeked out of the water. I had seen her before she died, but there was nothing of her face left. She was holding me by the waist and trying to drag me under the water. I looked to the shore for help, but was gone. The sound of a car engine moved away. She was completely covered over me. I'm going to die killed. When I thought that, I suddenly felt light. I heard a voice in my ear. "You're leaving me again, aren't you?" I heard a voice in my ear. It was close enough to breathe on me, but the air didn't move. "Take me with you." There was a fishy smell. My body was cold as if frozen. I don't remember where I crawled out of the swamp and how I got there, but I found myself at my front door, crying like a child. I took off my swamp water-soaked clothes, stuffed them in a garbage bag, and took a shower. No matter how hot the water was, my back was cold. Even when I wrapped myself in the futon, I was cold. Unable to stand it, I drove to Sis' house. Sis must not have been in a normal state. The door was unlocked. The moment I opened the door, I felt something slip out of my back. I called out, "Hey, S," and he wandered out from the back of the house. When he saw me, he turned blue and started shaking. As I reached out to punch him, I noticed that his eyes were behind me. "You don't have any water," S murmured. I could smell the fishy smell behind me. I didn't want to be here even for 1 second. I pushed us away with my eyes closed and stumbled out of the room. The next day, I went to his house with a few friends, thinking that if he was dead, I would be the last one to see him. They would suspect me. The door was still unlocked. My friends who entered first called out to me, but there was no answer. When I entered the room, I found S, surrounded by his friends, laughing and giggling. His eyes were out of focus. He was soaked from the head down, as if he had been drenched with water. Broken S just kept laughing. As I stood there, stunned, watching, I smelled the fishy smell again from behind me. "Thank you," he whispered. After that incident, I couldn't go near the swamp, the ocean, or the pool.